Since we're on the topic about social media and censorship, let's go ahead. I'm going to jump ahead to this story about mass formation psychosis. This is from The Hill this morning. This is Kim Iverson, who always has a hot take. Mass formation psychosis. That is what the right wing has been talking about for days now. Apparently, it's something Dr. Robert Malone said on the Joe Rogan podcast. I've been meaning to listen to that, actually. I'm interested to know the bullshit that Malone was spewing on Joe Rogan's podcast. So this is Kim Iverson, who is she a conservative? Is she like a shit lib? We don't even fucking know. She has some weird fucking takes. But here's her talking about mass formation psychosis.
Kim, what's on your radar?
Well, the term mass formation psychosis trended over the weekend with so many searches it broke the internet. When people went to search for the term on Google, a couple of strange things happened. Some people saw this odd disclaimer from Google saying the results were changing quickly and that it would take time for results to be added by reliable sources. What does this even mean? I thought when you Google something, it would bring up sites relating to the topic. Why would Google need time to add results by quote-unquote reliable sources? Sounds like they're censoring search results. Well, a few hours later, when people searched for the term, a bunch of sites began to pop up claiming it was a new far-right buzzword or one attributed to anti-vaxxers. Well, it's very difficult to find any information using Google, so I had to turn to DuckDuckGo in order to find any relevant information. So what is mass formation psychosis? Well, the term came recently from the Joe Rogan Dr. Robert Malone interview that aired this past Friday, but was also heard and explained in...
That is correct. Google cares about fucking money and their advertising revenue.
More detail during Dr. Peter McCall.
I am not high enough for this shit.
We're in what's called a mass formation psychosis.
Okay, so maybe Malone didn't say it. I was wrong about that.
I give credit to Dr. Matthias Desmet in the University of Ghent in Belgium. And recently, Dr. Mark McDonald, psychiatrist from LA. Mark McDonald's got a new book out, The United States of Fear, describing how the mass psychosis developed. What your listeners need to know is a mass psychosis is when there is a groupthink that develops that's so strong that it leads to something horrific. And the examples are these mass suicides that occur in these...
The examples are goddamn capitalism. The examples are the fucking commercials on TV.
Religious cults. The example is Nazi Germany, when people walk into gas chambers and were gassed. These horrific things. And four elements here is very important, Joe. First, there must be a period of prolonged isolation, lockdowns. Number two, there must be a withdrawal of things taken away from people that they used to enjoy. That's happened. Number three.
Also, fucking, what lockdowns? What lockdowns? What lockdowns? What lockdowns? When have we been in lockdown? This isn't March of 2020 anymore. By May of 2020, there was no real lockdowns. There were bans on mass gathering of events, but like, there were no fucking lockdowns. What are you talking about?
Three, there must be constant, incessant, free-floating anxiety. All this news cycle, all the deaths and the hospitals.
Yes, capitalism. Fucking, that is all. Fucking Joe Rogan is guilty of exactly that. Fear-mongering for profit.
More variant mutant strains, everything, people becoming scared over and over again. And the last thing, number four, the capper. The capper is there must be a single solution offered by an entity in authority. And in this case is clear. Worldwide, the solution was vaccination. Everybody must take the vaccination. It's not a U.S. program. It's not a European program. It's every...
Tony 2012. That was a much simpler time. Jacking it in San Diego. What in the fuck is this idiot talking about?
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
Yes, I do.
Everywhere. And you know what, Joe? Doesn't matter what vaccine it is. It could be China-Vac, Coronavac. It could be Novavax. It could be Pfizer, Moderna, J&J. It's interesting that it doesn't even matter what vaccine it is. It's just take a vaccine, take any vaccine. And so what mass psychosis says is number 4.
No, don't take any vaccine. Take a vaccine that was developed to treat coronavirus, the pandemic we're in. This guy is a fucking idiot. Please do not get me taken down off of YouTube because he's fucking dumb.
For the solution, there's no limit to the absurdity of the solution.
So Dr. McCullough attributes the idea to Dr. Matthias Desmet, a professor of clinical psychology at Ghent University in Belgium, one of the top universities in the world. The 4 conditions that lead up to...
And she's giving this asshole credibility.
People who are radically intolerant and people who are irrational in their solutions. So in regards to this pandemic, we're seeing this intolerance of the unvaccinated, where many people who consider themselves very open-minded or even quote-unquote woke are saying things they believe, are saying that they believe the unvaccinated should be removed from society in some way. So the most common way to remove the unvaccinated so far...
Not removed from society. I don't want to be around them because they're contagious. They're spreading a contagious illness. God damn, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Why are you so fucking stupid? Fuck! I'm just stunned. I did not expect to be like this flabbergasted by this piece.
Has been through requiring vaccine passports to enter restaurants, bars, movie theaters, malls, and other venues, requiring vaccine passports to work or even travel.
And what vaccine passports?
To not only encourage people to get vaccinated.
There are private entities requiring vaccine, as well they should.
To the unvaccinated. So there are a lot of people in society right now who I would consider to be radically intolerant of unvaccinated people and will go to great lengths to stay away from them. And many people, like myself, believe their solutions are irrational. The virus seems to be spreading through vaccinated and unvaccinated populations alike, so segregating based on vaccination.
But it's not killing the vaccinated. And the vaccinated also have a much less, have a much smaller window in which they can shed virus. Ma'am, you are completely distorting the facts and you are lying to your viewers.
Status doesn't make any sense to me. But let's talk about the 4 conditions that lead up to this point and other examples throughout history. The first condition is some sort of social isolation. So the social isolation can be a group that is isolated from society, like cults living out in the middle of nowhere, groups that are isolated from each other through segregation or apartheid, or groups within a society.
And isn't that what's happening with the right wing? They are isolating themselves from us. You want to talk about mass formation psychosis? Look no further than Trump supporters. What you are describing is exactly what has been happening with the Trump supporters over the last 4 or 5 years, ma'am.
That don't intermingle, like cultural, ethnic, or religiously different groups. So the first condition is some sort of social isolation from others. Now, lockdowns and not having any social interaction with one another could also count in this category. The second condition is some sort of despair, loss of enjoyment, perceived negative change in lifestyle. Obviously, this entire pandemic has created a massive loss of enjoyment and severely shifted...
It's created a mass loss of life, bitch!
They think this earth life is undesirable and blame infidels or sinners or even just the human condition. In the example of segregated societies or societies that persecute different people, be they a different race, ethnicity, religion, or in the case of this pandemic, medically different, people feel a loss of something in their lives and blame these others for that loss. But basically, the second condition is life isn't so great and these others are to blame. The third condition is being in a constant state of fear, anxiety, or anger. And I think this one speaks for itself. When a person is in a constant...
Life isn't so great and others are to blame, like the fucking wokeness or the fucking social justice warriors, yada, yada, yada. You're describing the right wing in this country.
State of fear, anxiety.
Constant state of fear and anxiety.
That fear and anxiety.
And that's exactly what every single right-wing commentator pushes.
Come along and say they have the solution to the fear and anxiety and can make things better. They offer a solution and the people become fixated and follow through with that solution, be it mass suicide, apartheid, genocide.
Be it storming the Capitol on January 6th.
Forced religious conversions. These are the most extreme, but they're probably smaller, less obvious examples. I would say mass incarcerations of black men in America is probably another example of this. Blacks and whites stayed largely segregated within society. There was a perceived erosion of safety in the community. Fear, anxiety, and anger resulted. And the leadership, Clinton and Biden, in this case, came along with the solution of locking people up. Now, Trump's wall.
Clinton and Biden. Not that they didn't fucking play a role. Mass incarceration started in the 80s under Reagan, when he flooded the streets with crack. What are you talking about? Yeah, Biden went along with it, but that has to do more with the third way Democrats and how they were trying to be Republicans. Ma'am, you are full of shit. You might be the absolute worst political commentator on the planet.
Wall is another possible example. Americans are isolated from people south of our border. There's been some despair and a feeling of loss of the good life. Fear, anxiety, and anger resulted, and the solution was to build a wall, and people became fixated on this solution. So the question is, do we think we're living in a mass formation psychosis under Fauci's leadership where the solution is vaccination?
No!
Only vaccination will save us from this pandemic. Are people following?
Viruses work. Let me rephrase it. The way you stop the spread of a pandemic, this is how it works, is by reaching herd immunity. Now, you can do that either by everybody getting fucking infected and a bunch of people dying, or you can vaccinate. That's how this fucking works. That's how you stop a pandemic, ma'am. This has nothing to do with proposing some magical fucking solution that's part of a mass formation. None of this makes any fucking sense. What? Fuck. I'm stunned. The stupidity of this woman, and they let her speak this shit to, the Hill is not as big as what it used to be, clearly. But a couple 100,000 people a day? How many views did this have? 145,000 views. So give or take a couple 100,000 people a day. I'm stunned.
Nonsensical guidance blindly. Well, I want to play this clip for you of Fauci on CNN's State of the Union. Tell me if this guidance makes sense.
Can you see the dislikes anymore?
Vaccinated and boosted people.
I thought YouTube changed that.
They go into a restaurant, eat safely indoors right now?
When you're having such I call it a tsunami of infections, Dana, we are seeing people who are vaccinated and boosted who are getting breakthrough infections. So when you're in a situation...
That's all?
The thing that you want to say is that if you want to do things like that, better do them in a setting where you...
The Hill's audience is incredibly right-wing. Not as bad as Breaking Point's. Breaking Point's took the most hardcore right-wing people with them. Being in the comments of Breaking Points just breaks my brain.
You know the people around you are vaccinated and boosted.
So Fauci says fully vaccinated people are getting the virus, so only be around fully vaccinated people. Rather than push back on this nonsense, Dana Bash just goes along with it. Doesn't this seem like an example of what could be considered mass formation psychosis?
No!
I'll ask you guys. I mean, a lot of this stuff.
I hope Ryan Grimm puts her in her
We're
place.
still following Fauci's guidance. I'm kind of wondering.
Please, Ryan, bring some sanity to this.
About a third of the population is maybe, just maybe, under this mass formation psychosis. What do you think?
No.
Well, I agree.
Well, of course, dumb fuck Robbie Suave over there agrees.
His recommendations. I don't think the unvaccinated should be stigmatized. I don't think there should be mandates, lockdowns, all of that we agree on. But this does not sound rigorously defined enough, this mass formation psychosis. It sounds like
Trump supporters.
Many of my fellow Americans.
It sounds like the people who are denying the vaccine and fucking dying. And dying, that's mass formation psychosis. Dying because you refuse to get a safe vaccine.
The people we're taking orders from, are wrong, but I don't know that it's not a malady. They're just wrong. I don't think it is an epidemic. It's just, except in some kind of metaphoric sense.
But if the leader, the leader might be wrong, but if people are blindly following the leader without questioning, wouldn't that be the psychosis?
Well, it's so wild that look, to calling people that you disagree with in the country crazy, I think it's just very comforting to people because it allows you to then not have to grapple with their, with the arguments that they're making. And, a lot of kind of liberals watched what this guy said about the mass formation psychosis and were like, yeah, all of that definitely applies to these anti-vaxxers.
Right.
But that also gets them off the hook from dealing with the arguments. I think what you need to do.
He doesn't know where to start.
Rationally at each situation, and if there are no reasonable, simple explanations for things, then you can start going for hocus like mass formation psychoses. But all of these things are much more easily explained. I mean, people for some reason are having a very difficult time with the idea that the virus mutates, and that they want to be told in March 2020. Precisely.
I want to make a statement here, and I was thinking about this earlier today. I've been pretty spot on with my assessments of this pandemic from the beginning. This show, I started doing the test runs of this show 2 years before the pandemic started, but the actual start date of this show was 4/20/2020. This show has existed almost exclusively during the pandemic. You can go back and watch my takes on how the pandemic was going to play out, and I called it. I called the number of deaths, and when we would reach 3,000 deaths a day, I called it. I've pretty much been right the entire pandemic. That has nothing to do with me. I want to stress that. It has nothing to do with me. All I did was listen to people who were knowledgeable. That's all I did. Look at the data. Look at what people say that, know what they're fucking talking about. Epidemiologists and virologists. It wasn't hard to be right throughout the pandemic. You know who I didn't listen to? People like fucking Ted Cruz or Rand Paul who said that the fucking virus was going to magically disappear. People like Joe Rogan and shit. They're idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. And why do they keep getting to be wrong over and over and over again, and people still listen to them?
How to respond to this pandemic and precisely how it's going to unfold. And if anything new comes up, then it's like, aha, we told you they were lying. Now, as we've discussed multiple times.
Because we were talking about variants on this show long before the Delta variant.
And so they have lost credibility. But at the same time, this is shifting in real time. This is a novel coronavirus. But there are other explanations. So these people may or may not have medical expertise. We'll leave that for somebody else to decide. what do they know about like fascism in the 1920s and 1930s? I mean, come on. So there has been this effort to say that, well, in Germany during the Nazi period, the people just went insane, and that too is a way to not address what actually happened.
It's actually a way of denying responsibility. No, they didn't go insane. Right. They let this happen.
It is a way of denying responsibility, and the way that Rogan teed it up was interesting. It's like these are super educated, smart people, and they just snapped. How did this happen? That's not how he teed it up. That's how Malone teed it up. It's like no. That's not. There's a lot more happened. There was a World War.
Right. There was resentfulness about the debts, being forced to pay for World War I, and the industrial.
He was a madman. Columbus was indeed a madman.
You can write books. You can read thousands of pages on the what goes into the rise of Nazi Germany,
in fact,
it's not just people went insane.
John Maynard Keynes, right out of the Treaty of Versailles, was like, you are creating the conditions that are going to give rise to fascism and to a Second World War. Like he predicted everything. Right. That's how rational it was in the way that it unfolded, that you could see it coming.
Yep.
So then to say that they went crazy, rather than to say that fascist leaders exploited all of these conditions that were created by the vindictiveness of
which is exactly what's going on in this country right now.
Is giving everybody a pass. And the same with mass incarceration in the 1980s. Easy explanation. There was a rise in crime, which came from the hollowing out of the manufacturing base of the United States. There was also a white backlash to civil rights from the 60s, and
fucking lead.
And the political response from a lot of white politicians was, we're going to do mass incarceration. You don't need to say that people are crazy, because that lets people like Biden and Clinton off the hook. There wasn't a mass psychosis there. It was.
But I mean, I guess you're just kind of trading, right? So it's either there's mass psychosis, or there's like mass stupidity, or even maybe mass, evil. I guess like people that are
mass
just
humanity is what I'd say.
Thank you, Ryan.
Humanity can be manipulated, and depending on what the conditions are that have been created, they can be manipulated in different ways.
Well, I think this is just a way of saying people are being gaslit. So, if you believe in the ability to gaslight, then there would be this ability to gaslight a mass group of people. But I agree with you that I don't like that it takes the responsibility away from people.
We're trying to gaslight people into not dying from preventable illness?
You are kind of
what the fuck?
Maybe their own personal choice in this, or their own personal responsibility in whatever it is that they're doing. So, I mean, I totally agree with that. But I do still feel like
it already has pretty much lost all meaning.
At the atrocities that have happened throughout history, it's hard to imagine that people are just, that there's mass inhumanity, where people are just cruel and evil. I would rather believe that very good, smart people just
No.
I would.
People are encouraged by a system, it's called capitalism, to be cruel and evil.
Prefer to believe that, I suppose.
And I guess one last point would be that, it's true that these leaders find these single solutions that they try to push everybody's anger onto. And in the case of Nazi Germany, we know what that was, and we know the evil that resulted from that. But that's completely different with the vaccine, because yes, the vaccine doesn't stop the spread, but even today, if you're boosted, you're 20 times less likely to get infected, which means it does slow the spread. You are massively less likely, if you're vaccinated, to.
And the window in which you shed the virus and spread it to others is much smaller. Thank you, Ryan, for actually pointing out the facts that Kim Iverson completely ignored.
Be hospitalized, even with Omicron or with Delta, and you're massively less likely to die. And so when people have intolerance of on this question, it's not some type of kind of irrational, race-based intolerance. It's not racist.
They're both giving him the side eye.
There's something going on. If you're unvaccinated, you're more likely to get infected, more likely to go to the hospital, and more likely.
Ooh, it's some kind of ism. Oh my God! Both of them giving Grind Grimm the side eye. The only smart person on this fucking show.
To die. Now, you're not safe if you're vaccinated, but you're safer, and that is a real distinction.
Yeah.
Ah, Kim, that fucking face she made. Ah, that's great. Oh my God. She got smacked down live on air. The fucking outro music plays. She's like, oh, I look stupid. Of course she's vaxxed. Oh, this is fantastic. Oh, man. Let me drink this in.